1 week out, people. We are 1 week away from Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk. Oleksandr Usyk versus Tyson Fury, the rematch for the unified heavyweight championship of the world. It's man, it's what I think is all. It's pretty much all that's on most boxing fans' mind now, and I'm very much looking forward to this fight. I just have a feeling like there's a lot of intrigue going into this fight. I think that it's going to be intriguing to see what both guys weigh in. Oleksandr Usyk released an image of himself where, he's obviously flexing and people are saying he looks big, and I already did a video on it. I would be very surprised if he's any heavier than he was in the previous fight. If he's heavier by a pound or two, I mean, that's neither here nor there, but I'd be very surprised if he'd be over, say, 4 or 5 pounds. That would surprise me. Tyson Fury, I'm probably going to do a video this evening at some point on what I think both guys should weigh in at their respective weights, because I think with Fury, it's harder to kind of gauge where he's at, because for me, he looks heavier in not even just the images we've seen of him in the gym in training camp. Going back to the Joshua versus Dubois fight, he was there, he was all dressed in black. And even then, you were looking at him and you were like, oh, he's looking a bit like Fury is never someone who's going to be, a Joe Six-pack or anything like that. But he did look heavy there. Likewise, he looked heavy at the press conference. So there's a lot of kind of, what is he going to weigh in? Frank Warren at the DAZN face-off was saying, oh, no, he's going to be light. Whereas Spencer Brown, the manager of Fury, at the actual press conference itself was saying the opposite, that he's going to be heavier. So it is kind of I guess it's a guessing game, so to speak. But for me, just from the outside looking at it, he does look a little bit heavier. But nevertheless, I just cannot wait for this show. It will be broadcast live on DAZN pay-per-view. You can purchase the fight via the G-Man link, which will be pinned in the comments section. I'll also pop it in the description. Watch it on DAZN if you want, if you choose. I certainly will be. I think it's going to be absolutely epic. But where do I start? So you may remember, or you may know this week, that it actually came as a bit of a shock. Michael Benson, who would be, personally for me, he'd probably be my go-to guy on Twitter, him and everything boxing. He's been, I think, taken over or bought out by... I'm not sure what the ins and outs are, so he's not putting up as much stuff now. Well, he's not putting up anything, really. So everything boxing is now my go-to guy, and shout out to him. He's actually DM'd me a few times on Twitter, big up to him, or X as it's called now. And he released the following, that Dennis McCann is actually now off this show. He returned an adverse analytical finding, which is, I think, the new word now for failed test. You may as well say that's the new word. That's what they said with Dylan White. That's what they said with... I don't know if it was that with Conor Benn, but I know they're kind of using that one now. So he's now off the undercard. Now, I have to say, people, I done a video during the week back in London about how I felt that this undercard was not one of the strongest. I didn't say it was necessarily bad, but I said in terms of Saudi cards, it's quite weak. As a whole, it's alright. Losing that fight now with this card, I would go as far as saying now the undercard, I have to say, is a little bit poor. Fisher, Dave Allen. There you go. Atauma versus McKeon. I am looking for... I reiterate what I said in that video. Move that fight to co-main event. I think it deserves that. I think it needs to be co-main event. I think it's arguably, with the exception of the main event, the most competitive fight on that bill. Ishmael Davis is a very, very good fighter. He is a warrior in the truest sense. He steps in on short notice against someone like Boacek. But I just think Boacek against a short notice type fighter, I don't think that should be co-main. And I think that Daniel Dubois, Dempsey McKeon should be co-main. And I did get a chance to... I looked very briefly at the face-off they did. I don't want to sound harsh, because I'm sure the girl who was hosting it did... Well, I'm sure she did as good as she probably could have. I have seen that girl do interviews on DAZN before, and she's normally quite good, but God almighty, she really... I get that it's difficult, and I know that because I've actually been at one of those face-to-faces that Ade did with Sonny Edwards and Bam Rodriguez, and I know... even because we met up the night before to go over questions, it's a lot of prep. So I know it's not easy. But it was a particularly bad performance, in my opinion. So I didn't I just couldn't sit through it. I didn't watch the face-off, but I think that fight is the most intriguing now, with the exception of the main event, so it should really be co-main event. I think that the original card was all right, but now that we've lost that fight, Peter McGrail, on BoxRec anyway, he's gone from the card. If they can find someone on short notice, maybe, but that's gone now. Questions need to be asked. Dennis McCann, certainly do. What the hell? What's up with that? Failing, I mean, because a lot of I did notice he did look a lot better after that Belude fight, the first one, because he looked. I don't want to say he did look poor in that fight, definitely, but I think Belude looked very good in that first fight. And what was it, about a year and a bit later, 18 months later, he looked a different beast altogether. He was hitting harder, and that's not a smoking gun, but, I mean, I think it's more when you see someone who is at like this level and they jump to that level almost overnight. McCann was never that going to that, but he was kind of like there, but just stagnating there. Then all of a sudden, boom. So you wouldn't know. You really don't know. I need to keep an eye on that situation. But as I said, like realistically, the rest of this card, low IQ versus McGregor is interesting. Lee McGregor. Other than that, it's only 2 fights on the card I'm interested in. Atoma versus McKean and Fury Usyk. Hence the reason I think it should be co-main eventing. In terms of the fight itself, I'm probably going to get my prediction video out Monday evening. I did it Monday evening for the first fight, so I'm going to do it this time as well. I can't wait for this fight, lads. I think there's a lot of intrigue. I know you have people like Duke McKenzie, whose opinion on boxing I greatly respect. He's a great commentator, Duke McKenzie, as well. I think it's a bit harsh that he's not doing more commentary these days, because he's a very good commentator. If you ever heard him, I remember he did some for ITV back in the day. Very good, very articulate man, really knows his boxing. He's heavily favouring Oleksandr Usyk. I see a lot of people heavily favouring Oleksandr Usyk. Tyson Fury, I've flown back home to Ireland, twice in the last week. And I flew home last night. And what I did is, I have the full fight. I have a copy of the full fight, which the Zone sent me. And I just watched it. And I have to say, watching the full fight, I've watched it several times, but I really made sure, because you're on a flight, you're just going to really zone in. He did do a lot of good things, Tyson Fury, especially in those mid rounds where he had a success. And it just, I'll do my prediction video on Monday. I'll record it probably tomorrow and upload it on Monday. But he did a lot of good things in that fight. And I don't think he's out at this rematch in the slightest. But there's a lot of ifs and buts there. There certainly is, coming in, if he comes in significantly heavier, as I've always said, I think a happy in between would be maybe about 270, 272, thereabouts. If he's coming in 280, we never seen Fury in the 270s comfortably. We've seen him in the 270s prior to the Wilder rematch, but we'd seen him in very bad shape in those respective fights. Against Wilder, he didn't look chiseled, but he didn't look as aesthetically bad as he did, like say against Joey Abel or someone like that when he was in the 270s, or Cephas Fury, in another example. He didn't look as aesthetically bad as he did in those fights. He looked fairly solid, but I've never seen him any higher than that. When he came in the high 270s against Ngannou, he didn't look good. He really didn't. You're kind of thinking, if he weighs in 280, God forbid, or more, how's that going to work? So there's a lot of ifs and buts we need to talk about. We'll have all the answers this day next week. It's as simple as that, I mean, in the build up to Christmas, we are going to have an absolute Christmas extravaganza before the big day. And I genuinely can't wait. We're a week away. This day next week, I'll be getting ready. We'll be getting ready for probably the biggest fight of the year, or the first fight was the biggest fight of the year, but arguably the second biggest fight of the year. And I, for one, can't wait. I think it's going to be epic. Yes, the undercard is not. It's taken some hits. The undercard has definitely taken some hits. Boacek versus Majimov would have been a great co-main event. McGrail versus McCann would have been a great fight. That would have been a very good fight. That's gone. So it's taken some hits. At the end of the day, as long as the main event still happens, I think we're not going to complain. Look, it's not a great card. It's simple as it's not. But as long as the main event is on, I think we're all happy. God forbid anything happens this week. I don't think it will. I think it's going to be a safe transition to Saudi for both guys. God only knows what John Fury's going to do this time. I imagine he's going to be on his best behaviour. I would imagine, but let's wait and see. So fight week, plenty to discuss between now and then. I've got some more film studies planned, and people, it's going to be good. It's going to be epic, I think. I think it's going to be epic. And the build up, everything. Let's go. Let's go. I'll leave it there. I hope you enjoyed it, people. Smash the like button if you could. As always, hit subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, people, I will leave it there. Peace.